to memorize specific details about the paper, but you should sort of understand how they work. And so this is trying to refresh your memory on exactly how the research design works. But so it says, in essence, the authors compare the number of hospitalizations on days when there's a high level of ship activity, the number of hospitalizations on days when there's a low level of ship activity. So let's suppose that in reality, air pollution has no effect on hospitalizations. And so then it asks which of the following scenarios would not lead them to conclude that air pollution affects hospitalizations. So this is like maybe a little bit confusing because there's the not in there. But the idea is that, the question is basically saying, which of these things is not going to cause a bias in the answer. So the things you want to sort of set in your mind first are realizing, okay, the question states that, or it asks you to suppose that there's no effect on hospitalization. So sort of the unbiased estimate, the answer that's going to be correct here is that when they estimate an effect that's a coefficient that's equal to 0, so in essence when they find that hospitalizations are the same on days of high ship activity and low ship activity, then that is going to potentially so that's going to so when they find that there's no difference in hospitalizations between those between the days when there's a lot of ship activity and a little bit of ship activity, then that would be an unbiased estimate when they find that there is a difference in hospitalizations between those two sets of days, and that's going to essentially be a biased estimate. So the ones that you want to circle are the ones where where it's not causing bias, the scenarios that don't cause you to sort of conclude that generate differences in hospitalizations between high ship activity and low ship activity days. So there's 5 scenarios that are given. So the first one says, when it rains in LA, the ships cannot arrive. Rain also clears the air of pollution. So this actually isn't going to cause a bias. Like you might initially think that it's going to cause a bias because it's like, okay, you're getting, we have a factor here which is rain, so it's going to affect ship activity and also affects pollution. So it seems like maybe that's like some sort of omitted variable or something. But if you think about it for a moment, we already said in the question, let's suppose that there is no effect of pollution on hospitalization. So even though you're getting changes in pollution that are correlated with changes in ship activity, there shouldn't be any difference in hospitalizations between like high ship activity days and low ship activity days, right? Because even though the rain is clearing the pollution, it doesn't matter because pollution doesn't cause hospitalizations and set up in the question. So that one is circled, like you're okay there, you're not getting bias there. Then the second one says, suppose when it rains in Los Angeles, the ships cannot arrive. The rain also forces children to stay inside and avoid athletic activities that cause asthma attacks. So now you're getting, again, you have this rain, it's a factor that's correlated with ship activity, and now it's also correlated with hospitalizations because it's forcing the kids to stay inside, and so they have less asthma attacks because they're not exerting themselves and getting asthma and ending up in the hospital. So this one would be uncircled in the sense that it is in fact, a scenario here that could generate differences in hospitalizations between the high ship activity and low ship activity days. The third one says ship arrivals are correlated with truck activity as goods are transferred from ships. The trucks create traffic in Los Angeles, which stresses out the drivers, and then the stressed out drivers end up in the hospital. So this again is a factor that is going to be correlated with ship activity and is going to also be correlated with hospitalizations here because you're getting these trucks, they create additional traffic that eventually causes people to end up in the hospital here. So this scenario could in fact cause a bias in your estimate because it's a factor that's correlated with the ship activity and also generates hospitalizations. So that one again is uncircled because here uncircled corresponds to bias and circled corresponds to unbiased. The fourth one says that ship arrivals are correlated with truck activity. So it's the same thing as the third one, but now it says trucks create traffic in Los Angeles and traffic creates pollution. So this is kind of similar to that first, to the answer to question A, right? In that we do again have a factor that's correlated with ship activity, but now it's not correlated with hospitalizations. It's only correlated with pollution, which we already stated at the beginning of the question is not causing hospitalizations. So that's not going to generate a correlation between ship activity and hospitalizations. Therefore, it won't cause a bias, and so we leave it, or so we circle it. And then the last one says that their pollution data contains measurement error. Specifically, the true pollution levels are always twice as high as the measured pollution levels. That really, that's just a factor that kind of doesn't have any bearing on the research design at all because ultimately they're just looking at the relationship between ship activity and hospitalizations. If they happen to mismeasure pollution, it doesn't really matter, and really doesn't matter in this case because pollution we're saying has no effect on hospitalizations anyway. So that's not going to cause any sort of correlation between hospitalizations and ship activity. Therefore, it's not going to cause bias in their estimate. So you circle it. Sorry. Wait, okay. Sure. Okay, so this one is about the Shane Greenstone paper that's using cross-county changes in pollution levels during the recession. So there's some counties that are like hit hard by the recession. They have a lot of factory shutdowns and see pollution drop because of that. Other counties, are not as affected by the recession. They're basically kind of control counties in that scenario, and they're not, they don't see air pollution drops. So then sorry, are you talking about this part, the setup of the question, or? They usually it's going to be things that they didn't control, like. Look at it this way: you're not gonna have to memorize all of the control variables that they have in their regressions beyond if it's a difference in differences regression. They basically have indicators for the cross-sectional units like the counties, and they're gonna have some sort of time trend or post treatment indicator or something like that. But beyond those, you don't need to memorize the controls and then sort of try to remember, hey, did they have this control variable in there or not? And therefore, is that gonna affect the answer to the question? So if it's a specific control variable that's in there, I'll tell you. So the question says which of the scenarios are going to make the estimated effects of air pollution on infant mortality too large in magnitude relative to the true effect. So basically, when are they going to end up sort of overestimating the effect, which is okay. So in this case, it's a positive relation. We think that if air pollution goes up, then infant mortality should probably go up as well. So the first scenario is that job loss causes low-income workers to defer having babies, but has no effect on fertility plans of high-income workers. Low-income workers tend to have higher infant mortality rates than high-income workers. So what this is saying is that what's happening here is okay. So basically you have these recession-hit counties, right? So those are the ones that are seeing the big drops in air pollution are the ones where the factories are shutting down. So we think that those are also going to see reductions in infant mortality, right? So if you sort of have any factor that causes infant mortality to decline even more in those counties beyond just the effects of the reduction in air pollution, then that's going to cause you to overestimate the effect, right? So the scenario there is a little bit complicated, but it is actually it's describing a scenario where in these recession-hit counties there's an even greater drop in infant mortality. The reason is that you have a bunch of job loss. The low-income workers in particular, of course they're probably more likely to lose their jobs, but even if they're sort of equally likely to lose their jobs versus high-income workers, this effect would still work through. But so you have a bunch of low-income workers, they've lost their jobs, they're then going to defer having babies. So what that means is that essentially the mix of babies in the recession-hit counties is going to start trending towards high-income workers because the low-income workers are deferring fertility because of the job loss. And then that that means that infant mortality is going to actually fall even more because the high-income workers have lower infant mortality rates than the low-income workers, right? So we basically just described a scenario where infant mortality rates in the recession-hit counties, of course, they're already falling somewhat because of the reduction in air pollution, but now they're going to fall even more because you're going to have the sort of mixture of babies, the composition of babies going more towards high-income families relative to low-income families. And so that's going to actually cause you to overestimate the effect in that case, which is why we say that it's circled. The next one, so this, I mean, this is like a pretty, there's sort of several, you have to like go through sort of several different calculations or go through several steps to figure that out. So I think this is sort of one of the harder scenarios that gets posed. Yeah, so right. So again, so this is why I think it's part of these questions is like understanding exactly what the study's doing. But so we know the study is basically looking at recession hit, it's doing like differences comparison between recession hit counties and non-recession hit counties. And so when your counties hit with recession, the factories shut down, air pollution drops, and then if there's an effect on infant mortality, we think infant mortality drops. Right. So basically, what we're already thinking, okay, what we're seeing here is that infant mortality should be dropping more in recession hit counties than it is in non-recession hit counties. So if there's any, then there's any the scenarios that I give involve somehow increasing that decline, like having a further decline in infant mortality in the recession-hit counties, then that's going to cause you to overestimate the effect of the drop of air pollution on infant mortality, right? Because there's already some drop that's occurring in those counties, the recession-hit counties, because of the decline in air pollution. But now we're sort of piling additional factors on top of that. They're causing even greater drop. But implicitly, like the regression or the difference is going to assign all of that decline to the air pollution drop rather than knowing about these omitted factors that we're talking about. So the second one, this one I think is easier. It says new medical technology developed around 1981, so it's like the middle of the sample period here. Lowered infant mortality rates, but then it says this technology was installed everywhere. So you go, okay, well, this is a factor that's changing over time, but it's happening in both the recession-hit counties and the non-recession-hit counties, so I don't think it should cause a bias in the differences estimate because it's basically just going to net out when you take the difference between the change in the recession-hit counties and the non-recession-hit counties. So that goes uncircled because it's not going to cause any bias in either direction. Then there's the third scenario, says job loss allows expectant parents to stay at home for the entire pregnancy, which is healthier for the fetus than going to work. So this is again posing a scenario in which in the recession-hit counties, so they're losing jobs, they then basically have sort of this unplanned maternity leave or paternity leave, and it turns out in the scenario here that's healthier for the children. So that's going to reduce, basically, it's going to cause a further drop in infant mortality in the recession-hit counties, which is again going to sort of reinforce the drop we're already seeing that's due to air pollution and going to cause you to overestimate the effect of the air pollution drop on infant mortality. So that one gets circled.
So when is it healthier for the fetus? Doesn't there's less infant mortality?
Right.
So why would?
So you're already, remember, infant mortality should already be dropping in the recession-hit county because the reduction. Yeah. No, I agree. It's like hard because more of this variable is bad. It's not good. Like, I mean, I'm not. In general, like, I'll do my best to. This is why, like, I made it very clear, like, too large in magnitude, because sometimes we're talking about negative effects, and we say too large, it's, like, ambiguous whether we mean, like, so is, like, -1 larger or smaller than -2? Obviously, it's larger in terms of -2 plus 1 is -1, but then it's smaller in magnitude, so I try to make it clear that I'm talking about, sort of more negative effects here on a negative outcome, which is not positive. Then the fourth part says counties with large numbers of factories in 1980 were steadily losing white-collar jobs from 75 to 1985, and these workers tend to have lower infant mortality rates than the average worker. So this is something that will cause a bias, but it turns out that the bias goes in the opposite direction from the way in which the question is like concerned, right? So basically, so you've got so it's counties with large numbers of factories, so that kind of immediately clues you into like, okay, these are going to be the ones that we're sort of thinking are recession hit. They got sort of a lot of factory shutdowns. So you have to have a lot of factories to begin with in order to have factory shutdowns. So they're the ones that are going to see declines in pollution rates. So these are the recession hit counties, and we're saying that they're steadily losing white-collar workers from 1975 to 1985. So this is kind of basically you can sort of the first my like immediate reading of that first sentence would be okay, we've got something that's going on in essentially the treated counties here, the counties that are going to see large pollution reductions because it's saying large numbers of factories, and furthermore, it's changing over time and it's changing differentially because it's focused on these treated counties. It's not saying that it's also happening in the control counties as well. So that first sentence basically, should immediately kind of be like hinting to you that there could be some sort of bias here, or that it could generate some sort of bias. But then you think about like, okay, well, what direction does the bias go? So we're basically saying the white-collar workers, are leaving the counties that are going to see reductions in pollution, and these workers tend to have lower infant mortality rates than the average worker. So we're saying is that the counties that are going to see large reductions in pollution should actually see increases in infant mortality rates because they're losing these workers who tend to have lower infant mortality rates, right? So you're sort of getting the mix of families that's remaining has sort of riskier outcomes or higher infant mortality rates. That means that then actually it's going to go against the air pollution effect. So the air pollution effect, the reduction in air pollution should be driving infant mortality rates down. This scenario is going to be counteracting that in the treated counties by driving them up, and so it will cause a bias, but it's in the opposite direction of making the effect too large. In fact, it would make it too small. I mean, these are the counties that are losing, that are seeing reductions in pollution. That's true. So I mean, I think you're talking about like the less pollution is part of the treatment. So to the extent that there's less pollution and that is in fact causing infant mortality rates to fall in those counties, that's fine. Like that would just be part of our estimate then. But the point is that there's this other effect on infant mortality that is occurring that's not running through pollution, but it's going to be assigned to pollution in the research design. Because you're always just going to compare what's happening in the treated counties versus the control counties and assume that all of that divergence is due to the change in the pollution between the two counties. And then the last question, and I guess we're out of time, is that reductions in hospital budgets during the recession caused hospitals to stop providing care to uninsured individuals. This increased infant mortality among unemployed workers. So again, this is a factor that's going to cause a bias, but it goes in the opposite direction. So basically, we're saying those companies or those counties that are losing factories, reducing their air pollution, they actually see an increase in infant mortality rates because the hospitals are providing less care to these individuals now. Yeah, so that's true on all of the ones where you actually write down answers. It's not true on these ones. On the circle ones, if you just leave everything on circle, then I assume you're saying it's all in circle. It'll be about the same length as the ones you saw here, give or take a page or something like that. But again, I don't think time is going to be a big issue. You're going to have 3 hours. So.